Know me by my enemies is possibly one of the most gangster lines that I've ever heard in my life. And this is essentially what one Mr. Bernie Sanders has issued. Know me by my enemies. Know me by the people that hate me. Know me by the people who want to put a knife, a dagger in my heart, that want to see me breathe my last breath, that want to come to my funeral. Know me by the people that would spit on me. Know me by my enemies. And that is the gauntlet, the one Mr. Bernie Sanders has just thrown down. And I love it. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. And guys, if you enjoy this content, you find yourself coming back here often, please consider supporting this content through PayPal or Patreon. Even $1 helps. We say it all the time, and it is absolutely true. Yes, know me by my enemies. I love that line. If that is not on a rap album somebody has not been doing their job. Know me by my enemies. I love it. I love it. Back in 1936, an extraordinarily powerful FDR said this.
We had to struggle with the old enemies of peace: business and financial monopoly, speculation, reckless banking, class antagonism, sectionalism, war profiteering. They had begun to consider the government of the United States as a mere appendage to their own affairs. And we know now that government by organized money is just as dangerous as government by organized mob. Never before in all our history have these forces been so united against one candidate as they stand today. They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
That line would only be more badass if it was uttered by Batman himself. I welcome their hatred for me. I welcome their animosity. I welcome the fact that they hate my guts. I welcome it. I don't shrivel from this challenge at all. I stand here. I am enfueled by the fact that these enemies of mine, these people, this organized money with their interests, hates mine. The problem here, and the point of contention here, is the interests are out of alignment. If what is their interest and what is my interest? His interest was, I want to spread wealth throughout the country itself to the bottom section of the electorate. Their interest was against him spreading that wealth to the bottom segment of the electorate, in which case he says, I welcome their hatred and their animosity and the fact that they're against my interests. Because fact of the matter, when I take this to the American public, I guarantee you that the majority of the population is going to be backing me because I am backing them. Never before has a person arranged such animosity. Now, Bernie Sanders can't say that because FDR existed. However, aside from FDR, never before has forces been allied to take down and be against one candidate. And that one candidate is Mr. Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders has issued his enemies list, so people who hate him, who don't like him, who are against him, who have publicly and openly condemned him. And Bernie Sanders released this list in the sense of, know me by my enemies. Know me by the people who dislike me. Because again, in the same way that FDR made his argument to the American public back then, Bernie Sanders is going to take that and is going to run with it around the country and saying, look at these people. They hate me. But let's take a look at who these people are that greatly dislike me. I am fueled by the fact that they hate my guts. Because what I want to do is diametrically opposed to what they have been doing. And the reason why the country and the world is the way that it is now is because people have shriveled from that challenge in the light of those people being against them. Sanders, key argument. I am looking for a political revolution. And I'm going to do this by galvanizing the public and bringing the public along with me to show them that you have these forces in your society that is against changing the established order. They're against it because they've been magnificently benefited from the established way of things. Many of these companies, like Amazon, paid zero taxes. Think about that. They use our air. They use our police force. They use our fire department. They use, us, the bodies of the individuals within the society itself. We buy their products and we work at their stores. And yet still they pay no taxes. They've been able to benefit magnificently from our society, and yet they're not contributing to the society in financial terms. Sanders is making this point that needs to change. You can understand why Amazon doesn't want that to change, but that's a different question from the 99% of the population that is not Amazon. Go down the list. Walmart, some of these other companies, Disney, out shipping jobs. They do this because it's in their financial interest to do so. My argument, and I suppose Sanders' argument, is we need to change the system that makes that in their financial interest to do so. We need to change the system that incentivizes that behavior. Of course, people that have benefited from that is going to be against that. But the fact of the matter is that behavior has been to the detriment of the majority of the population. Sanders' point is, know me by my enemies. Why are they my enemies? What have they been doing in the larger society? Is that something that you want them to do and benefit from in the sense of the larger society? And the fact that they're against me gets across to some degree that I am against the way that they have been operating. A status quo. I love it, 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 I love it. You have no idea how much I love that. Let's take a look at this list. Because this list, Democrat donors also. Meaning he doesn't spare punches in regards to which side they're donating from. He's just making the argument that these people are cantankerous from the standpoint of politics. They've been buying politicians and they've been ruining this country as they do so. They're looking for things to be in their best interest, not for the best interest of the larger society, and that's his point. And that's in part why they're so against him. Haim Saban. Now this guy's a Democratic billionaire donor. Haim Saban is a billionaire that has spent millions of dollars buying elections for his candidates. He called for the bombing of Iran in 2014, criticized President Obama's attempt to bring peace to the Middle East, and attacked senators for urging humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. On Sanders, we love all 23 candidates. No, -1. I proudly dislike Bernie Sanders. And by the way, he proudly dislikes you. He proudly dislikes you so much that he has put your face on a list, a sense and a badge of honor that you dislike him. Imagine being so cantankerous that you are a badge of honor for disliking somebody. Keith Lagone, co-founder of Home Depot. While Kenneth Lagone has a net worth of $3.7 billion, Home Depot pays wages so low that many of its workers are forced to rely on food stamps, Medicaid, and public housing subsidized by the United States taxpayer. Today, cashiers at Home Depot makes as little as $9 an hour, the very definition of a starvation wage. Here's the catch. He is a billionaire because those people are on those starvation wages. It's not this kind of oddity. It's you are able to become rich off of the defects and the fact that you don't pay your people decent wages. I'm always enamored by that. You couldn't be settled with $1.7 billion and have your people making, let's say, $12, $13, $14, $15 an hour. No, he needs it all. He needs to take it all. But I guess my point is, it's not odd that his employees are on food stamps or subsidized by us, the taxpayers. We're subsidizing the fact that he's a billionaire. No, that's not odd at all. It is a direct correlation. He is a billionaire because those people are on food stamps, because he pays those people a starvation wage. I hope you understand my point. Andy Pudster, perfect name, former fast food CEO. As CEO of a fast food company that he owned, Hardee's and Carl's Jr., Pudsker made more money in a day than his minimum wage fast food workers earned in a year. He opposed increasing the minimum wage above $9 an hour, expanded overtime laws, workplace safety rules, and supported providing huge tax breaks for millionaires and billionaires. Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he? Look, being a billionaire is a public construct. It's a legal thing. In the same way a legal construct or legal rules allow them to attain that much cash, those rules can be changed. In the same way that billionaire is somewhat of a legal construct, it can be undone. that person, just like everybody else on this list, is working in their incentivized interests. Are they wrong for doing it? Maybe wrong in the sense of morality being your top objective, but if morality is not your top objective, then wrong doesn't necessarily come into play. Right and wrong doesn't exist. Those are conceptual things that we have a tendency to kind of get wrapped in. It's not that I think they're wrong, but let me say it this way: right and wrong are always within the context of a goalpost. Right and wrong in relation to what? Now, we often say right and wrong in the sense of morality. These people are not working on a moral principle. They're working on a principle of maximizing their profit. They're working in the context of a system. That system has told them it is perfectly okay to do these things. Now, Sanders is making the argument that this is morally reprehensible. But whether it's morally reprehensible or not, the fact that the system allows it means that they're going to do it, and they're going to push for it, and they're going to try to expand on the provisions that have allowed them to get rich currently. My point is, you have to change the system itself. Otherwise, people are going to function in their best interests within the context of that system. These people are not insane for doing this. It makes all the sense in the world that they would do this because the system allows and incentivizes them to do this. The incentive just comes from the rewards that are kicked back in them taking a certain behavior. That behavior just so happens to be reprehensible to everyone else. I'm going to keep your wages low because when I keep your wages low, then the stock market likes it. Have you ever watched the financial channel where you've increased wages? The stock price goes down. They hate it. There's a financial disincentive for them to raise wages that goes beyond just the fact that the company is going to have to pay more in wages. My point is, yes, he was doing all of these things, Sanders, but he was doing all of these things because he was incentivized to do these things. What are you going to do to change the system of incentives that allows people like this to get rich? Browbeating them is nice, but something else needs to be done in a systemic way that creates disincentives for this type of behavior if this is not the behavior that you want these guys to go with. That's all. Lowell McAdam, former CEO of Verizon. As CEO of Verizon, McAdam made almost $20 million in a year in compensation while fighting to take away healthcare benefits from employees and outsourcing thousands of jobs to low-wage countries. From 2003 and 2013, while Verizon made over $42.4 billion in U.S. profits, it received a tax refund. Not only did it not pay any taxes, it received a refund of $732 million from the IRS. Think about that. Thanks for your air quality. Thanks for your employees. Thanks for your roads. Thanks for your bridges. Thanks for a healthy workforce that has clean water. Thank you for an environmental protection service that makes sure that the air quality and water quality and that our workers are relatively healthy in this regard. Thank you for allowing us to use your society. But no, we're not going to pay anything in taxes. And we're also going to give a tax payback. Amazing. Let's keep going. Jamie Dimon, CEO of Morgan Chase. Jamie Dimon is a billionaire CEO of a bank that was fined $13 billion for mortgage fraud, illegally foreclosing on military families, bribed foreign officials, and received $416 billion in tax bailout from the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department. That doesn't even include the liquidation of 20-something trillion that the Fed was doing. Here's one more thing. This guy, when they're taking their jobs as with the notion of maximizing their profit. Their objective is not to hire people. Their objective is not to give you a job. Their objective is not even the job per se. The objective is to maximize their profit. The job is just the means to ends to get to that point. It's like an energy generator. All of the schemes that they use to generate energy are just a means to an end. They just want the energy. They don't really care about the scheme per se. I hope that makes sense. When these guys are shipping jobs overseas, they're doing that because it allows them to get to their ultimate objective, which is the cash. Again, the job is a means to an end. I hire somebody only because I have to hire somebody because that's the only way I can make my profit. If I could get that profit without hiring that person, I would get the profit without hiring that person. In this case, if you could pay somebody, let's say $4 or $3 as opposed to $9 or $10, then you've made additional profit because you are able to suck that back up as profit. Yes, that American workers lost their job, but again, your point is not to create a job. Your point is to make profit. There is a difference in those things. It is vitally important to understand the difference when these guys are screaming about being job creators. They don't care about the job. That's just something that they're using. The goal is profit. Let's keep going. Bob Iger. Disney rewarded Iger with a 4-year compensation package worth an estimated $423 million. He now makes over 1,400 times as much as the average worker at Disney. Under his leadership, Disney has employed thousands of people in China who work in sweatshops at extremely low wages and was fired high-tech U.S. workers and replaced them with low-wage temporary guest workers from abroad. Again, that's a moral argument, but their goal is to maximize profit. I continuously point to the fact that you have a system that incentivizes this behavior. You have to change the system if you want to change the behavior. Whatever Sanders is talking about, if he's going at this of, we need to change the system to stop these guys from doing that, then I am all for it and I'm all behind it on him. He is awesome in pointing to this. But let's be very clear, this is a capitalistic system itself that promotes this behavior. It is not necessarily a defect in the person, in so much as that person is working within a system that has allowed him to advantage himself magnificently, and he wants to perpetuate that system. And just like any political person says what they need to say to try to get you to believe that that system is awesome and that we need to continue with the system that we got. Because again, they made tons of cash from that system. The question and the thing that we make is, can we do it better? And by better, we're talking about more so the rest of the people in the society benefiting from the fat of the society. And for that, you have to eat the rich. There should be no billionaires. That's where I'm at. Billionaires should not exist. If there is even one person that has difficulty feeding themselves, if there is even one person that is concerned about the ability to be able to feed themselves or their kid, then billionaires should not exist. I even go so far and say they shouldn't exist at all, but I'm at the very least postulating that if we have a society where everybody is kind of doing amazing, then we can revisit this. But that's not where we are. Billionaires should not exist. A society that allows it and incentivizes that behavior, that system needs to change. There should be no one who retires and are unsure on whether or not they're going to be able to eat, where they're going to sleep. Are they going to be able to get their drugs and medications that they need in their old age to be able to retire with a certain degree of decency, not concerned if they're going to be able to make it from point A to point B before they die. We should have a different world. That's my point. Many of the people on this list, Jeffrey Emmett, Lloyd Blankfein, Alan Greenspan, Third Way, these people would look you in the eye and they would say, we can't afford healthcare. We can't afford expanding Social Security to ensure that people have a decent living at the end of their life. We can't afford to ensure that colleges are free, public colleges, and that kids can go to school without having $50,000, $60,000 of debt on their back. We can assure these things. They would look you in the face and say, we can't afford it. We can't afford it. It's too expensive. We can't afford it. They're billionaires, and we'll look you with a straight face in saying so. Fact of the matter is we can afford it. It's a certain degree of political will. We can afford it. It's just that those people, for the most part, want the system the way it is. I'm saying it needs to change. It can change. This notion of a billionaire looking you in the face saying the system shouldn't change, it's astonishing. But no, it can. And the fact that Sanders, in the pitch that he's making, this know me by my enemies thing, is making the point that these people who are saying that we can't afford it, these billionaires screaming to high heaven, many of them Democrats, many of them Republican. And to be honest, the political distinction at this point don't really matter. They're sitting above the political process. But looking you in the face saying they can't afford it is utter nonsense. A better world is possible. It will take political will. It will take people being assertive and saying that this is what we want. But there is nobody that should retire after working an entire lifetime, giving their bones, their energies, their muscles to the benefit of this country, and then retiring at a situation where they can't afford to make ends meet or not knowing where their next meal is going to come from. There should be no one getting to the point of working their entire life and then not knowing whether or not they're going to be able to get medical care or pay for their prescriptions. We can afford it. We can do those things. It takes political will to do so. I love the fact that Sanders is arguing, know me by my enemies. Krillin, 876. Here's what drives me crazy. House Democrats have the majority. They can rescind these tax credits tomorrow. They act like innocent bystanders. Well, the fact that many of the people on this list are Democratic contributors is, I think, part of Sanders' point. You can't get stuff that you want that is extraordinarily popular by the American population. Not because the public doesn't want it, more so because the political actors that are in those positions are paid by wealthy campaign contributors that don't want it. There's a difference in those things. You can get health care. You can have Medicare for all. You can have an expansion of Social Security. You can have a situation where people retire in dignity without being afraid of where their next meal or medication is going to come from. You can have those things. It takes a clear present mind of saying, yes, we want this. We can have this. It takes people rallying, standing in front of Congress, standing in front of their representative, pushing them, compelling them, cajoling them. It takes people who are in the political space gravitating towards people outside of it, and this kind of populist revolt of sorts. It does take somewhat of a political revolution and a sea change in the perspective. FDR was arguing that in 1936, we're talking about 30, 70, 80 years ago, where you still had organized money doing what it could to try to change and contort the political space to its whims. But notice, he's arguing from a position of strength. It's not that the American public changed per se. It's that the political space was bought and captured, in which case the media space was owned by those same billionaires and millionaires. And the information, the stories, the perspective was all taken from one side further and further to the right. Sanders is arguing for a political revolution. He's arguing that the public is already on board for this. He's arguing that these political leaders are paid in campaign contributions by these same people who are on Sanders' enemy lists to not do those things. It's possible. It was possible then. It's possible now. It is an important step that we're taking, by the way. Human rights. We need to understand that when a person doesn't have, it affects the rest of us. This notion of that college debt only belonging to that individual student. That debt is $1.7 trillion. That debt belongs to all of us because it affects the entirety of the society in the sense of people getting married, people buying houses, people starting their lives, or in this case, not starting them at all because of the debt weighing on them. The medical bills. You realize when a person is ill after a major illness, their economic output drops. What about people who are born ill? What about people who get ill in that intermediate stage? You're compelling people to poverty based on the way society is organized and based on the things that we as a society should come together to provide. We can have a better world. It is important to understand, though, that these things that plague us, be it healthcare, be it education, be it whatever, it's not specifically and solely to the individual. It affects the larger society. That debt, whether it be healthcare, whether it be education, affects the larger society. It's not just an individual pursuit. We are not rugged individualists. Get that out of your head. I know that's what they tell you, but they tell you that because billionaires have billions of dollars, and within the context of cash, they prefer you to be rugged individualists. How about this? Be a rugged individualist, but be one that cobbles together with other rugged individualists to work for policies that are in your collective best interests. We can have Medicare for all. We can have education in a way where people don't have $50,000, $60,000 of debt on their backs when they get out of school. We can have a system where if you work a decent job, or if you work a job, you're going to get paid a decent wage. Those things can be put into fruition. I'm not even talking about a socialist utopia. I'm just talking about a society where when a person retires after spending the entirety of his life working, that he's not retiring into abject poverty. I'm talking about a society where nobody sleeps on the street. This is the richest country on the planet. It is a crime that anybody in this country sleeps on the street. And we have this all over this country. I'm saying that this country could be a better place, even though it may not be the socialist utopia. And I'm not a socialist. I'm just making this argument that it doesn't have to be perfect to be a tick further in the better direction. Sanders is that guy. And there's nobody else in this contest that makes this argument that succinctly of these politicians are bought I am not. Or if I am bought by you. Know me by my enemies. These people hate my guts. They hate my guts because they know I'm not working in their interests, I'm working in yours. I am Bernie Sanders. I love this argument. I love this argument. And I wanted to show this list because I love this list and I love this framing that he's taken, this FDR framing of I am the second coming of FDR and trying to put things straight. People are iffy on the Democratic Socialist label, but all of them know who FDR is. He's resonated through the centuries, through the decades. That, definitively. I love this argumentation. I love this argumentation. All right, I'm going to end this. I didn't want this video to go too long, and 25 minutes is far too long for this video. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Eat the rich. Sanders has a post out, has an article out in Washington Post, where his argument is basically the path to getting this country straight, especially through the racial divide, and the gap, income gap, is through the 1%. Could not agree with him more. Know me by my enemies. Love it. Have a good one, guys.